Hello, and welcome to Faith Progression Levels, a series meant to deepen your faith and support action. I'm your host, Michael Wright. I begin this series with a three-part introduction. This is part 1, machinery versus mechanism. As I begin this introduction, I'd like to answer the question, why this series? From the age of 5, I was taught to understand the world through a lens of right and wrong illustrated by the Bible. I understand that this may not be your foundation, but I'm okay with that. What I'm not okay with is that many who also have a foundation in biblical knowledge seem lost in the face of challenges, abandoned to despair and powerlessness. I want to share a different path. Whether you call it growth, enlightenment, development, or progress, because of my upbringing, I call it faith. And faith should necessarily be a progression toward legacy. That is what this series is all about. I want to begin with an analogy. My grandmother never drove a car. Many of you are like my grandmother in your relationship with faith. You recognize that faith is a vehicle towards something grand, beyond your sight, and not bound by what you know and are capable of. Just as my grandmother knew that the car could get her faster from one place to another, you see faith as a luxury of the most righteous among us. You seek them out just as my grandmother sought after a ride to work or to the grocery store. You've been offered faith as an active capability that you can control. Yet, like my grandmother, you've passed that opportunity on to others, believing that the mechanism is too complex for you to comprehend. Rather than considering the practice in small parking lots and back roads, your fear jumps to freeways and interstates. Because of this fear, you risk never learning to utilize faith as anything more than a means to judge and objectify the truth. Understand that my grandmother is still the most important person from the beginning of my success. But how many more could she have touched by utilizing the mechanism of a car? How many more can you influence through the mechanism of faith? Over the course of this series, I invite you to contemplate that question. I invite you to explore your faith by identifying 4 components. The machinery you know. The lesson you may have missed. The mechanism you can utilize. And the principle that is the foundation of your sustainable progress. If you're not frightened away by the responsibilities assigned to you after these 3 introductory presentations, you will enjoy the meat of the Faith Progression Levels series. My Faith Progression series has 10 levels. Tune in next time to get the second of the introductory presentations.